Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions, the mystery of Paititi, the Inca's last golden city. Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction, not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. When the Spanish conquered the Inca Empire in the 1530s, they found gold beyond anything they had imagined. Yet Inca survivors spoke of something they had never found, a refuge city deep in the Amazon jungle, where the last Inca priest had fled with the most sacred treasures of Tawantinsuyu. They called it Paititi. Spanish expeditions searched for it for 2 centuries. Adventurers have hunted it for 4 centuries more. And recent satellite and LiDAR surveys have begun finding, in the jungle east of Cusco, something that looks like it could be exactly that. This is not a myth built on rumor. It is supported by multiple independent indigenous traditions, by Jesuit missionary records from the 17th century, by Inca Kipu records that survived the conquest, and now by remote sensing data showing large geometric structures beneath the jungle canopy in precisely the region the traditions point to. Paititi may be the greatest undiscovered archaeological site in the Americas. This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the broader phenomenon of lost civilizations, and to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. The ocean has a long memory. As the last ice age ended around 12,000 years ago, sea levels worldwide rose by more than 120 meters, enough to drown entire coastal civilizations that may have flourished along shorelines that no longer exist. The continental shelves that now lie submerged beneath shallow coastal seas were once habitable land. River deltas, bays, and estuaries that today lie underwater were once the most attractive real estate on Earth, rich in resources, temperate in climate, and accessible by sea. If ancient peoples built their settlements where resources were most abundant, then much of the archaeological record of early civilization may be sitting on the ocean floor, invisible to conventional excavation. This is not speculation. Marine archaeologists have already found submerged ruins at dozens of locations worldwide, off the coasts of India, Japan, Cuba, and the Mediterranean islands. In some cases, these structures are clearly artificial: stone walls, carved steps, and rectilinear platforms that could not have formed naturally. The academic debate is not whether these structures exist, but what they mean. Were they built by unknown pre-flood cultures, or were they coastal settlements of known civilizations gradually abandoned as waters rose? The answer, in many cases, remains open. What oral traditions add to this picture is equally significant. Cultures living on or near the sea throughout the tropics and subtropics carry remarkably consistent flood narratives, stories of a great inundation that drowned an earlier world. These are not borrowed from one another through colonial contact. They predate European exploration. They appear to be independent memories of a shared catastrophe, the end of the last ice age, when the world coastlines changed forever and entire ways of life were drowned. The civilizations that built on those shores, if they existed, vanished beneath the waves. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades. And patterns, in science, demand explanation. With that foundation in place, Let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter. The core evidence surrounding Paititi, the Inca's last golden city, is more extensive, more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications, official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. Multiple independent indigenous traditions across the Amazonian foothills of Peru and Bolivia describe Paititi as a city of gold located east of the Andes, reachable through the Madre de Dios River basin. The Matsai-Inca people, the Machiginga, and other Amazonian nations all carry oral accounts of a great ancient city in this region, predating Spanish contact. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes. But as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. But that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered Jesuit missionary Andres Lopez reported in 1600 that he had personally visited a large settlement deep in the Amazon that he believed to be Paititi, describing gold-covered buildings and a large population. His account was suppressed by the church and not published for decades. Several subsequent Jesuit missionaries made similar claims. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this, and that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine. In 2001, Italian explorer Mario Poglia discovered a 1600 Jesuit document in the Vatican archives describing a large city called Paititi with thousands of inhabitants located east of the Cusco region. The document included geographic details consistent with other independent accounts. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation, but the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, LIDAR surveys conducted over the Madre de Dios region between 2019 and 2023 have revealed geometric earthworks and settlement patterns beneath the jungle canopy that do not match known natural formations, covering areas consistent with a substantial pre-Columbian urban settlement. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators. They are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of Inca records preserved in Kipu, the knotted cord recording system, DESC, Ribe and Antisuyu retreat route used by the last Sapa Inca and his court. The geographic indicators in these records have been correlated by researchers with the Madre de Dios Basin region. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from the previous points. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding. The Inca city of Vilcabamba, the last capital of the Inca resistance, was only definitively identified in the 1960s, proving that major Inca settlements can remain unlocated for centuries. If Vilcabamba hid for 400 years in the Peruvian jungle, Paititi, reportedly deeper and more deliberately hidden, could easily have remained undiscovered. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes. But as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. Equally puzzling to investigators, Spanish colonial documents include multiple references to gold and silver objects that arrived in Cusco from the east, from traders who would not reveal their source, in quantities inconsistent with any known Amazonian production site, suggesting an ongoing supply from an unidentified settlement. Taken together, these facts form a pattern, and that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodological error. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics. Each has been subjected to alternative explanations, and in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. We are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation, and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain Paititi, the Inca's last golden city. This is where the debate becomes most intense, because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation proposed by researchers holds that Paititi was a genuine Inca refuge city established after the Spanish conquest, where the last Inca rulers, priests, and survivors retreated with the imperial treasury and sacred objects. It remained inhabited for generations, gradually absorbed into the surrounding Amazonian populations as the memory of Inca imperial identity faded. Its ruins lie beneath the jungle east of Cusco, consistent with LIDAR evidence now emerging. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence, but it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. It remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that Paititi conflates two or more actual historical settlements, the known Inca refuge of Vilcabamba and one or more Amazonian trading centers of the Chachapoya or other Andean Amazon frontier cultures, into a single legend. Derry Golden City that no single location can fully satisfy. The legend grew because multiple real but separate sites each contributed elements to the composite myth. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that Paititi is primarily a cultural memory of the pre-Columbian trade networks that connected Andean civilization with Amazonian peoples, with gold flowing along routes that the Spanish never fully mapped. The city is not a single location, but an idealized memory of a trade system. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree. That is normal and healthy in science. What is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers, working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding Paititi, the Inca's last golden city, does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence, material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. Let us review the most significant documented evidence as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion, We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes Italian researcher Carlo Liberato's 2008 expedition to the Pantiacala region documented large stone platforms and terracing in the jungle consistent with Inca construe. CDON techniques at a location matching geographic coordinates in the Jesuit documents. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documented satellite imagery processed by the University of Florence in 2009 identified a series of geometric earthwork patterns in the Madre de Dios region that analysts described as potentially artificial, consistent in scale with a substantial pre-Columbian settlement. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed independent testimony collected from Matsai-Jinka communities by anthropologists in the 1990 described active avoidance of a specific jungle area considered sacred and off-limits, with oral traditions describing stone buildings there belonging to the ancestors of the Inca people. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away, and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding Paititi, the Inca's last golden city. Now we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. The Madre de Dios Basin of southeastern Peru is one of the most biodiverse and least surveyed regions on Earth. LIDAR archaeology, which can detect earthworks through dense forest canopy, is transforming what is possible in this environment. The same technology that revealed the extent of Angkor Wat and Maya lowland cities is now being applied to the Amazon basin. What it is finding is consistently larger and more complex than expected. Whether Paititi is found as a single great city or as a network of connected settlements, the archaeology of the Peruvian-Bolivian Amazon is poised to deliver one of the great discoveries of 21st century science. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing. Rapidly, satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis, and the findings, consistently, are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made. New analyses are being published. New voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will come, will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of Paititi, the Inca's last golden city, from the historical record through the physical evidence, across the competing theories and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of Paititi ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle. It is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process. And the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. If you came as a true believer, we hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please subscribe to the channel. We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment below telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.